Victoria Hayes had exactly $55 left in her bank account, 3 days before her landlord would change the locks on her Greenwich Village apartment, and one final interview that promised a salary so absurdly high, she almost deleted the email thinking it was a scam. She stood in the lobby of Kang Industries Tower, her brown leather portfolio clutched against her chest like armor. The building occupied prime real estate on Manhattan's Billionaires' Row, all glass and steel reaching toward the sky like a middle finger to everyone who couldn't afford to breathe this air. Victoria had walked past buildings like this 1,000 times, never imagining she'd be standing inside one, waiting to be judged worthy of entry. Her natural curly hair was styled in a proud afro today. She debated straightening it, wondering if corporate America would find it too much, but then decided that if they couldn't handle her hair, they couldn't handle her. Besides, she was desperate, not defeated. There was a difference. The lobby screamed money, old money, dangerous money, the kind of money that didn't ask permission, marble floors so polished she could see her reflection, modern art installations that probably cost more than her college education. Security guards in suits nicer than anything she owned, stationed at 3 separate checkpoints between the entrance and the elevators. 3 checkpoints for an office building. Victoria approached the first one, and a guard with a face like carved granite scanned her driver's license, checked her name against a tablet, and directed her to checkpoint 2. There, another guard took her fingerprints. She almost laughed, fingerprints for a job interview, but the guard's expression suggested laughter was not welcome in this building. At checkpoint 3, they searched her bag, professional but thorough. The guard found her emergency granola bar and her phone, both of which she was allowed to keep. Her portfolio passed inspection. She was handed a visitor badge and escorted to a private elevator by a young woman in a sleek black dress who didn't smile or speak. The elevator rose silently, floors ticking by on a digital display. Victoria's ears popped. She was going to the top floor. Of course she was. The doors opened onto a space that made the lobby look humble. Floor to ceiling, windows revealed Manhattan in all its sprawling glory. The office was minimalist, but every piece of furniture cost more than her entire life savings. She could tell by the way the leather gleamed, the way the wood had that aged, expensive sheen. A crystal whiskey glass sat on a dark wood desk, half full, condensation beading on its surface. And seated in the black leather executive chair behind that desk was a man who made her breath catch in her throat. Late 20s, maybe 30. Asian features, Korean, she guessed, given the company name. His dark hair was slicked back with precision, not a strand out of place. He wore a tailored dark vest over a crisp white shirt, the sleeves rolled to reveal forearms that suggested he did more than sit behind a desk. But it was his eyes that held her. Dark, intense. They found hers and didn't let go. "Miss Hayes," his voice was smooth, controlled. "Please sit." She sat in the chair across from his desk, setting her portfolio on her lap. The leather was cold against her palms. "Thank you for the opportunity to interview, Mr. Kangmin." He didn't offer a handshake. Instead, he studied her like she was a document he was considering signing. "Your resume is impressive. Columbia graduate, 3 years at Morrison Financial before they downsized. 6 months unemployed since then. The market has been difficult." I didn't ask for an explanation. His tone wasn't harsh, exactly, just final. "Tell me about your family." Victoria blinked. "My family." "Your parents, siblings, where you grew up." She hesitated. This wasn't a question she'd prepared for. "My mother lives in Atlanta. My father passed away when I was 19. Cancer. I'm an only child." Kangmin's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "And you moved to New York 3 years ago. Why?" "Opportunity, a fresh start." "From what?" The question was too personal. Every instinct Victoria had developed over 27 years of navigating the world as a black woman in predominantly white spaces screamed that this was wrong. Job interviews didn't work like this. CEOs didn't ask about your dead father and your reasons for leaving your hometown. "Mr. Kang, with respect, I'm not sure how my personal history is relevant to the position." He almost smiled. Almost. "Everything is relevant, Miss Hayes. The position you're applying for requires complete discretion. I need to know who you are, who might come looking for you, who might miss you if you were unavailable for extended periods." The way he said unavailable made her skin prickle. "I live alone," she said carefully. "I'm not currently in a relationship. I don't have many close friends in the city. I call my mother every Sunday, but she's not the type to panic if I miss a call." She wasn't sure why she was answering honestly. Maybe because lying seemed pointless when his eyes suggested he already knew the answers. Kang-min nodded slowly. "Good. Good. What kind of job interview was this?" "The position pays $300,000 annually," he continued. "Full benefits, a housing allowance sufficient to cover an apartment in any neighborhood of your choosing. In exchange, I require absolute discretion and total availability." Victoria's heart hammered. $300,000. That was more money than she'd made in her entire working life combined. It would solve everything: her rent, her debt, her mother's medical bills that Victoria secretly helped pay. "What exactly would my duties be?" she asked, adding how small her voice sounded. "Standard executive assistant responsibilities, managing my schedule, organizing correspondence, accompanying me to meetings and events. Nothing you couldn't find in any job description." He paused. "But my business requires privacy. You would be expected to observe and never discuss, to see and never acknowledge. Can you do that?" Every instinct screamed at her to run. The excessive security, the too personal questions, the salary that didn't match the job description. This was wrong. This was dangerous. This was $55, 3 days until she was homeless. "Yes," Victoria said, "I can do that." Kang-min slid a thick document across the desk. "Then read this carefully before you sign." The NDA was so comprehensive it could have been its own legal textbook. Victoria's eyes scanned pages of clauses and subclauses, penalties and provisions. If she violated any term, she could be sued for everything she had and would ever have. There were clauses about photographing company documents, about discussing business with anyone including law enforcement, about accepting outside employment. It was the most restrictive legal document she'd ever seen. She should walk away. She should thank him for his time and walk right back through those 3 security checkpoints and never look back. She thought about sleeping on her mother's couch in Atlanta. She thought about admitting she'd failed at her New York dream. She thought about the look on her mother's face, disappointed but unsurprised. Victoria picked up the pen. As she signed the final page, Kang-min's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his expression remaining perfectly neutral, but Victoria noticed his free hand close around the crystal whiskey glass. His knuckles turned white. He answered the call and spoke in rapid Korean, his tone clipped and cold. Victoria didn't understand a word, but she understood tone. Whatever the caller was saying, Kang-min didn't like it. He hung up without saying goodbye. For a long moment, he stared at the phone in his hand. When he looked up at Victoria, there was something new in his eyes, something that looked almost like regret. "You start tomorrow, Miss Hayes." His voice was perfectly controlled, but she could have sworn she heard a crack in it. 8 a.m. sharp. Security will provide you with credentials and a complete orientation." Victoria nodded and stood, gathering her portfolio. "Thank you, Mr. Kang. I won't let you down." She was halfway to the door when he spoke again. "Miss Hayes." She turned. Kang-min hadn't moved from his chair, but his entire demeanor had shifted. He looked older suddenly, tired. "I suggest you say goodbye to anyone who matters to you tonight." Victoria's blood ran cold. "I'm sorry." "Tomorrow you belong to Kang Industries. The job will demand everything from you. Consider tonight a farewell to your old life." He picked up his whiskey glass and took a long drink. "That will be all." Before she could ask what he meant, security appeared at her elbow, the silent woman from the elevator, and Victoria found herself being escorted out. The door closed behind her with the quiet finality of a tomb sealing shut. Victoria arrived at Kang Industries at exactly 7:58 a.m., 2 minutes early, dressed in her best white button-down blouse and dark professional pants. She'd barely slept the night before, Kang-min's words echoing in her skull like a warning she couldn't quite decode. Say goodbye to anyone who matters to you. She'd called her mother. A short conversation, nothing unusual. Her mother had talked about the garden and the neighbor's new puppy and the weather in Atlanta. Victoria had listened and smiled and said nothing about her new job except that she'd found one. something good, nothing to worry about. Now she stood in the lobby of Kang Industries again, her new employee badge clipped to her blazer, waiting to be escorted to her desk. The same 3 checkpoints, the same armed guards who didn't smile, but something was different today. Today, she was one of them, sort of. The elevator deposited her on the top floor, and she found her way to the desk outside Kangmin's office. It was large and modern, with a computer, a phone system that looked like it required a degree to operate, and absolutely nothing personal. No photos, no coffee mug with a clever saying, not even a pen left carelessly in a drawer. The previous assistant's presence had been completely erased. Miss Hayes, a nervous woman in her 50s, appeared at Victoria's elbow. Her name tag read Patricia, and she was wringing her hands like she was trying to start a fire. "I'm the office manager. I'll be walking you through your orientation today." "Thank you, it's nice to meet you." Victoria offered her hand. Patricia shook it quickly, like she was afraid to touch her for too long. "Before we begin, I need to give you your schedule. Mr. Kang has left very specific instructions." As Patricia walked her through the labyrinthine protocols of the office, which meetings to schedule, which calls to filter, which people to always admit and which to always deny, Victoria watched the other employees. They moved through the halls like ghosts, speaking in whispers, heads down. Nobody made eye contact with her. A few shot her quick glances that looked almost like pity before hurrying away. "Patricia," Victoria said finally, when they paused near the executive kitchen, "what happened to the woman who had this job before me?" Patricia's face went pale. Actually pale, like someone had drained the blood right out of her. "We don't talk about Christina." Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "And if you're smart, you won't ask again." Before Victoria could respond, Patricia was walking again, pointing out the supply closet and the emergency exits, and rattling off information like she couldn't get through this orientation fast enough. Victoria filed the warning away. Christina, the name of a ghost. At 8:15 a.m., Victoria was seated at her new desk when Kangmin arrived. He walked past her without acknowledgement, disappearing into his office. A moment later, his voice came through the intercom. "Miss Hayes, come in." His office looked the same as yesterday. The dark wood, the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sprawling below like it existed for his viewing pleasure. But today Victoria noticed details she'd missed. The art on the walls was Korean, traditional landscapes painted on silk. A small shrine in the corner held incense, and a photograph of a beautiful woman Victoria didn't recognize. "Your first assignment." Kangmin slid a folder across his desk. "Organize these files on a real estate acquisition. I need a complete summary by end of day." Victoria opened the folder and scanned the first few pages. Kang Industries was purchasing 17 properties across Beverly Hills, Atherton, and Palo Alto. The purchase prices made her eyes widen. 3 times market value on most of them, some even higher. "Mr. Kang, these numbers seem unusual." His expression gave nothing away. "They're correct. But the market analysis is not your concern." His voice was quiet, but the dismissal was absolute. "Summarize what's in front of you, nothing more, nothing less." Victoria nodded and retreated to her desk. For the next 3 hours, she worked through the files, creating spreadsheets and summaries, trying to ignore the obvious. Someone was being paid off, or money was being laundered through these purchases. The paper trail was there if you knew how to read it. And Victoria, with her Columbia finance degree and her years at Morrison Financial, knew exactly how to read it. At noon, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Her blood turned to ice as she read the message. It was a screenshot of her mother's house in Atlanta. The front porch, her mother's car in the driveway, the garden her mother had mentioned on the phone last night. And below the image, "Your family is beautiful. Don't make us introduce ourselves." Victoria's hands were shaking as she gripped the phone. She stared at the screen until the words blurred, trying to make sense of what was happening. This couldn't be real. This was New York, not a crime drama. She was a finance graduate, not what? Not someone who'd signed her life away to a man whose employees bowed to him and whose predecessor had vanished without a trace. She stood so abruptly her chair rolled into the wall. Before she could think better of it, she was striding toward Kangmin's office door. She heard voices inside, two men speaking Korean, then a thud, a muffled grunt of pain. Victoria froze, her hand raised to knock. Kang Min's voice came through the door, cold as ice. "Tell the Yakuza if they touch another one of my shipments, I won't send a warning next time. I'll send a funeral." Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst through her chest. Yakuza, Japanese Mafia, and Kang Min was threatening them like it was a business negotiation. The door swung open before she could retreat. Kang Min stood in the doorway, not a wrinkle on his vest, not a hair out of place. Behind him, a man knelt on the floor, blood dripping from his nose onto the pristine carpet. Kang Min's gaze dropped to Victoria's phone, still clutched in her hand, the threatening text still glowing on the screen. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I see you've received your welcome message." He stepped aside, gesturing for her to enter. "We should talk." Kang Min didn't apologize. He didn't explain, not at first. Instead, he walked to a cabinet built into the wall, poured 2 glasses of whiskey, and slid one across his desk toward Victoria like they were about to negotiate a business deal. Which, she realized with growing horror, was exactly what this was. "I don't drink during work hours," she said. "Today you make an exception." She didn't touch the glass. "What is this? What's really happening here?" The man on the floor had been escorted out by 2 guards who appeared from nowhere, leaving nothing behind but a small blood stain on the carpet that someone would probably make disappear before the end of the day. Victoria couldn't stop staring at the spot. Kang Min sat behind his desk and took a long drink of his whiskey before speaking. "Kang Industries is a legitimate business, real estate, private equity, hedge fund management. We handle billions of dollars annually and employ thousands of people." "That's not what I asked." "No, it isn't." He set his glass down. "Kang Industries is also the public face of the Kang Syndicate. My family has operated one of the most powerful Korean criminal organizations on American soil for 3 generations. Money laundering, protection, import and export of goods that never appear on any customs declaration. All of it funneled through shell companies and offshore accounts that no federal investigation has ever successfully traced." Victoria heard the words, but they didn't compute. This couldn't be real. She was sitting in a Manhattan office in the middle of a weekday, and this man was calmly telling her, "You're in the Mafia." "We don't call it that, but yes." "And I'm what? Your secretary?" "My assistant." His tone didn't change. "You will organize my calendar, manage my correspondence, and accompany me to meetings. You will not participate in any illegal activity. You will not witness anything that could be used against me in court. You are completely insulated." Then why the threat? Why send someone to photograph my mother's house? Kang Min leaned back in his chair. "Standard protocol. Everyone who enters the inner circle receives the same welcome. It ensures compliance." "Compliance," Victoria laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You kidnapped my life, you're threatening my mother, and you're calling it compliance." "I'm calling it reality, Miss Hayes. You signed the NDA. You know too much now to simply walk away." "The text wasn't my choice. It's procedure established long before I took control of the organization. But now that it's done, let me be clear about your situation." He stood and walked to the window, his back to her. Manhattan sprawled below him, indifferent to the drama unfolding in this glass tower. "You chose to apply for this position," he continued. "Your resume was flagged 6 months ago. Your financial situation was monitored. When you became desperate enough, the job posting appeared in your inbox. You weren't kidnapped. You were selected." Victoria felt sick. "Why me?" "Because you're perfect." He turned to face her. "Orphaned at 19 when your father died. Your mother remarried a man you dislike. No siblings. No serious relationship since your ex-boyfriend left you for your former best friend 2 years ago. You're isolated, Miss Hayes, desperate, and that makes you valuable." Hearing her life summarized so coldly, every loss, every failure, every loneliness laid bare, made Victoria want to scream, or cry, or both. Instead, she did something she would never be able to fully explain. She picked up the whiskey glass from the desk and threw it in his face. For 3 terrifying seconds, nobody in that office breathed. Whiskey dripped down Kang Min's cheek onto his pristine white shirt, darkening the fabric. His expression didn't change, not at first. Then something shifted. Surprise. And then, impossibly, respect. He pulled a handkerchief from his pocket and wiped his face calmly. "You're the first person to do that in 5 years and live. Are you going to kill me?" "No," he set the handkerchief aside. "I'm going to offer you something. I don't want anything from you. You want your mother safe. You want your debts paid. You want to survive this." He sat on the edge of his desk, closer to her now. "I can give you all of that. Protection for your mother, real protection, not just threats. Your student loans erased. A salary that will make you wealthy. All you have to do is play the role you signed up for. Nothing more, nothing illegal." "And if I say no?" His eyes darkened. "Then you become a liability, and the organization doesn't tolerate liabilities." Victoria understood what he wasn't saying. Walk away and she'd end up like Christina. A name no one spoke, a memory erased. "This isn't a choice," she said. "Every choice has constraints, Miss Hayes. The question is whether you're smart enough to work within them." She should fight this. She should find a way out, contact the authorities, run to another state. But the bleeding man on the floor flashed through her mind. The text with her mother's house. The way the employees bowed like Kangmin was their king. "Fine," she said. "I'll stay, but I want something else." "Name it." "The truth. When something affects me directly, I want to know. No more surprises." Kangmin studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Agreed, but the same applies to you. No secrets. No hidden agendas. If you betray me, Miss Hayes, there won't be a second chance." "Understood." He extended his hand. Victoria looked at it, the hand of a criminal, a mafia boss, a man who threatened families and ordered violence, but also her only lifeline. She shook it. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of schedules and meetings and learning exactly how much she was allowed to see. Victoria quickly realized that Kang Industries operated on 2 levels. The surface, where legitimate business deals were negotiated and contracts signed, and the depths, where conversations happened in Korean or Russian and certain visitors were never announced. She learned to recognize the signs. When Kangmin switched to his second phone, the one kept in his desk drawer, it meant the conversation was syndicate business. When certain names appeared on his calendar, Park, Yamamoto, Volkov, it meant she should find a reason to step out of the office. She learned, but she didn't look away. Every document that crossed her desk, she memorized. Every name, every number, every coded phrase. If she was going to survive this, she needed to understand it. On the 22nd day, everything changed. Victoria was at her desk at 2:47 p.m. when the alarm started. Not the fire alarm, a different sound, sharper and more urgent. Emergency lockdown. The building's security protocols initiated automatically. Metal shutters descended over the windows, doors locked with heavy thuds, and the lights shifted to a dim red emergency glow. Kangmin's door flew open. His expression was controlled, but his eyes were alert in a way she hadn't seen before. "Get in here, now." She obeyed without question. His office was already transformed. He'd pulled open a panel in the wall to reveal a rack of weapons, and he was strapping something to his belt. "Under the desk," he ordered. "Don't make a sound. Whatever you hear, whatever you see, don't move." "What's happening?" "The people I warned 3 weeks ago didn't listen." He checked something on his phone, jaw tightening at what he saw. "They're early." Before she could ask anything else, he pushed her toward the desk. Victoria crouched in the space designed for a chair, pulling her knees to her chest. The desk was solid wood, expensive, heavy, probably bulletproof, knowing what she now knew about this place. Gunshots echoed from somewhere else in the building. Screaming, running footsteps. Then silence, the kind of silence that comes before something terrible. Through a gap between the desk and the wall, Victoria could see a sliver of the office. Kangmin stood by the door, perfectly still, waiting. His breathing was slow and measured, like a predator preparing to strike. The door burst open. A man in dark tactical gear rushed in, gun raised. He was Asian, covered in tattoos visible on his neck and hands. He shouted something in Japanese. Kangmin moved like water, fluid, inevitable. He sidestepped the initial charge, grabbed the man's gun arm, and twisted. The weapon clattered to the floor. 3 more moves, too fast for Victoria to track, and the attacker was on his knees, arm bent at an unnatural angle, gasping in pain. 2 more men appeared in the doorway. Kangmin didn't hesitate. He used the first attacker as a shield, shoving him into his companions, buying himself 3 seconds to retrieve the fallen gun. Victoria had never seen violence like this. Not movie violence, choreographed and clean. Real violence, brutal, efficient, and over in moments. When building security finally breached the floor, Kangmin had incapacitated all 3 attackers. He wasn't even breathing hard. "Clear the floor," he ordered the security team. "I want a full sweep, find out how they got in." As the guards moved to comply, Kangmin crouched by the desk and extended his hand to Victoria. "You can come out now." She took his hand. His grip was warm, steady, completely at odds with what she'd just witnessed. He helped her to her feet and for a moment kept holding her hand. His eyes scanned her face. "Are you hurt?" "No." Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. What were they looking for? Kangmin released her hand and stepped back. "That's not your concern. You promised me the truth when it affected me directly. People just tried to kill us. I think that qualifies." He was silent for a long moment. The attackers were being dragged away by security. Blood stained the carpet, more stains to disappear. The office looked like a war zone. "They were looking for something called the Ledger," he said finally. "A record of agreements between major crime families, including the Yakuza. It contains evidence that could destroy all of us. And you have it." His eyes flicked to the far wall before he could stop himself. A painting hung there, an original piece, Korean countryside, worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Victoria filed away the location. "That's all you need to know," he said, "for now." That night, Victoria couldn't sleep. She lay in her new company-provided apartment in Tribeca, staring at the ceiling, replaying the attack over and over. The way Kangmin had moved, the look on the attacker's face, the blood on the carpet. But mostly, she thought about the moment after, when Kangmin had checked if she was hurt, when he'd held her hand and looked at her like she mattered. Nobody had looked at her like that since her father died, like she was someone worth protecting. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She should ignore it. She absolutely should not answer. She answered. A woman's voice, speaking English with a Korean accent. "Miss Hayes, we haven't met, but I know everything about you. I know about your mother in Atlanta. I know about the interview. I know about the ledger you're trying to find." Victoria's blood ran cold. "Who is this?" "My name is Una Park. I'm the woman Kangmin was supposed to marry before he called off the engagement." A pause. "And I'm calling to warn you." "Warn me about what?" "You think you're safe because you're useful to him. Christina thought the same thing. She found the ledger, tried to use it as leverage. And where is she now?" Victoria gripped the phone tighter. "The Hudson River, that's what everyone says." "Then you understand what happens to women who get too close to Kangmin's secrets." Yuna's voice softened, almost sympathetic. "Get out now, Miss Hayes, while you still can. Because if you don't, you'll end up exactly like Christina, dead and forgotten." The line went dead. Victoria spent the next week researching Christina Park. She couldn't use work computers, too risky. Instead, she used burner phones and public library computers, piecing together the fragments of a life that had been almost completely erased from the internet. Christina Park, 29 years old, Columbia graduate like Victoria, hired as Kangmin's assistant 14 months ago. For the first 5 months, she'd maintained a modest social media presence, photos of coffee shops, sunset views from her Tribeca apartment, company provided just like Victoria's, the occasional blurry shot of a work event that was clearly a high-end gala. Then the posts stopped. Her Instagram went silent. Her LinkedIn showed no updates. Her Facebook page was still up but abandoned. Victoria found one archived post, saved by a college friend who probably didn't know the significance. Christina standing outside Kang Industries, smiling, holding a coffee cup. The caption read, "New job, new life. Sometimes the best things come from the scariest leaps." Posted 9 months ago, her last post ever. "Get out now, while you still can." Yuna's warning echoed in Victoria's mind constantly. But where would she go? Back to Atlanta, where her mother's house was already being watched. Into hiding, with no money and no resources. The police, who would either dismiss her story or trigger a war between organizations. There was no out, not anymore. So Victoria did the only thing she could do. She watched, she learned, she waited. Kangmin's patterns became clear over the following weeks. He arrived at 6 a.m. every day without fail. He left around midnight, sometimes later. He never ate lunch, subsisting on coffee and the occasional protein bar that Victoria learned to keep stocked in his desk drawer. He took calls in 3 languages: Korean, family business; English, legitimate business; and Russian, something she hadn't figured out yet. The Russian calls always made him tense. He had allies, she realized, scattered across the globe. The Russian callers were partners of some kind. The Korean calls were either his father, whose name made his jaw clench, or his younger brother, who seemed to trigger a complicated mix of emotions. The Yakuza were enemies. That much was clear from the attack. But there were others, names she caught in fragments. Park family, Yamamoto clan, something called the Triad that made everyone speak in whispers. Victoria catalogued it all. On a Thursday evening, 3 weeks after the attack, Victoria was organizing files in the outer office when she noticed Kangmin's door was slightly ajar. She heard nothing from inside, no phone calls, no keyboard clicking. Curious, she approached. Through the gap, she saw him sitting at his desk, staring at something in his hands. A photograph. His face was different, softer. The cold control he wore like armor had slipped, revealing something raw underneath. His eyes were red-rimmed. Victoria must have made a sound because his head snapped up. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then he slipped the photograph into his desk drawer and his mask returned. "Miss Hayes, did you need something?" The files are done. I was going to head home unless you needed anything else." "Wait," he stood, walking toward her. "Come in, close the door." She obeyed, suddenly nervous. In the weeks she'd worked for him, their interactions had been purely professional, polite but distant. This felt different. Kangmin went to the window and looked out at the city lights. "You have questions. I can see them every time you look at me." "I have a lot of questions." "Ask one." Victoria considered. So many things she wanted to know. The ledger, Christina, Yuna, the attack, but what came out was, the photograph, who was in it. He was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "My mother and me, before everything." Before everything. Before my father became what he is. Before I understood what our family name really meant. Before, he stopped. Before I lost her. Victoria moved closer, drawn by the pain in his voice. "What happened to her?" "She tried to leave. My father doesn't allow people to leave." His voice was flat, but his hands had curled into fists. "I was 11 years old. I watched his men take her away. I never saw her again." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It was a long time ago." But the way he said it, the distance in his eyes, told Victoria it might as well have been yesterday. She should leave. This was too personal, too dangerous. But instead, she found herself saying, "My father died of cancer when I was 19. I was holding his hand when it happened. He looked at me and said, 'Don't be afraid, baby girl. I'll be watching over you.' And then he was gone." Kangmin turned to face her. "Is that why you're not afraid of me?" "Who says I'm not afraid?" "You threw whiskey in my face. You demand answers I don't give anyone. You look at me like..." He stopped. "Like what?" "Like I'm human." The words hung between them. Victoria felt something shift, a barrier coming down that maybe should have stayed up. "You are human," she said. "You just hide it really well." They talked until 2 a.m. Not about the syndicate, not about the ledger. They talked about food. She loved Southern cooking. He missed the Korean dishes his mother used to make. They talked about music. She was a jazz fan. He preferred classical. They talked about loneliness, the particular kind that comes from being surrounded by people who only want things from you. Victoria laughed for the first time in weeks. Kangmin smiled, really smiled, and his whole face transformed. He looked younger, lighter, almost like a different person. When she finally left, he walked her to the elevator. "Miss Hayes." "Victoria," she corrected. If we're going to have conversations at 2 a.m., you should probably call me Victoria. Another smile. Victoria, thank you for listening. Thank you for talking. The elevator doors opened. She stepped inside and turned to face him. Whatever happened to your mother, she said. It wasn't your fault. You were a child. You couldn't have stopped it. His expression flickered, pain, grief, something that might have been gratitude. Good night, Victoria. Good night, Kang Min. The doors closed between them. The next morning, Victoria arrived at work to find police cars outside Kang Industries. Not just any police. FBI. They were carrying boxes of files out of the building, supervised by agents in dark suits and serious expressions. Victoria's heart stopped. She pushed through the gathering crowd, flashing her employee badge, and made it to the lobby before a hand grabbed her arm. Patricia, the office manager. Her face was chalk white. Don't go up there, Patricia whispered. What's happening? Where's Kang Min? They found Christina. Patricia's voice shook. Her body washed up in Jersey City this morning. The FBI thinks they're saying. What? What are they saying? Patricia pulled something from her pocket. A key card. Victoria recognized it immediately. The same key card Kang Min had given her weeks ago, the one that opened his private elevator and safe room. Christina was wearing one just like this when they found her, Patricia said. They're looking for anyone connected to her, anyone who might have been involved. Victoria reached into her own pocket. The keycard was there, cold metal against her fingers. Evidence that tied her to a dead woman. And Kang Min had vanished. Victoria made a decision in 3 seconds. She didn't stay and answer questions. She didn't call a lawyer. She didn't try to explain the keycard or her relationship with Kang Min or any of the complicated truths that would only make her look guilty. She ran. The training she'd received during emergency drills kicked in. She knew where the secondary exits were, which stairwells led to back alleys, how to avoid the main security checkpoints. Within 5 minutes, she was 3 blocks away, walking quickly but not running, disappearing into the morning crowd of Manhattan commuters. First stop, an ATM. She withdrew the maximum daily limit, $500, then another ATM from a different bank, then a third. She emptied every accessible account, stuffing cash into her purse. Second stop, a corner store. She paid cash for a prepaid burner phone, sunglasses, and a baseball cap that she used to hide her distinctive afro. Third stop, Penn Station. She bought a ticket on NJ Transit, destination Newark, paid cash, no ID required. By 10 a.m., Victoria was checked into a motel on the outskirts of Newark, the kind of place that asked no questions and accepted cash with a knowing nod. The room smelled like cigarette smoke and despair, but it was invisible. For now, that was enough. She sat on the edge of the bed and tried to think. Christina was dead. Actually dead, not just missing. The FBI was involved. Kang Min had disappeared without warning, and Victoria was holding a keycard that might as well be a murder weapon. You'll end up exactly like Christina. Had Yuna been telling the truth? Had Kang Min killed Christina? Had the man she'd spent last night talking to, laughing with, actually murdered his previous assistant? She didn't want to believe it. The way he'd looked at her, talked to her, opened up about his mother, that couldn't have been an act. But she'd known him for barely a month. She'd known what he was from the beginning, a criminal, a mafia boss, a man who ordered violence and threatened families. Maybe she was just another Christina, expendable, disposable. Her burner phone buzzed, unknown number. She stared at it, heart pounding. Only one person could possibly have this number. She'd bought it an hour ago. She answered. Parking garage, 47th and 8th, level 3, Black Escalade, 1 hour. The voice was male, unfamiliar. Don't be late. The line went dead. Victoria knew she shouldn't go. Every true crime podcast she'd ever listened to, every news story about women who vanished after following instructions from strangers. She knew exactly what kind of stupid decision this was. But something in her gut said this was her only chance, and her gut had gotten her this far. An hour later, she walked into the parking garage. Level 3, rows of expensive cars in the dim lighting, and there, in the far corner, a black Escalade with tinted windows. She approached slowly, every muscle tense, ready to run. The driver's door opened. A man she'd never seen before stepped out, tall, Asian, dressed in a suit that screamed security detail. He nodded toward the back door. Victoria opened it and slid inside. Kangmin was waiting. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, stubble shadowing his jaw, his usually immaculate appearance replaced by wrinkled clothes and disheveled hair. He looked like he hadn't slept since she'd last seen him. "Get in," he said. "We're leaving the city." "Why should I trust you?" Victoria demanded. "Christina is dead. The FBI thinks I'm connected, and you disappeared without a word." "Christina is dead," he agreed. His voice was flat, exhausted. "But not because of me." "Then who?" "She found the ledger 3 months ago. She photographed it, tried to sell the information to the Yakuza." He met her eyes. "They killed her when she couldn't deliver the original, made it look like she drowned. I didn't know she was dead until this morning." "You expect me to believe that?" "I expect you to consider the alternative." He leaned forward. "If I wanted you dead, Victoria, I've had 100 opportunities. I gave you the keycard to my safe room. I told you about my mother, last night." He stopped. "Last night what?" "Last night was real." His voice cracked slightly. "For the first time in years, something in my life was real. I'm not going to let you die for it." Victoria studied him, the exhaustion, the desperation, the way his hands were clenched in his lap. She'd seen him take down 3 armed men without breaking a sweat. Now he looked like a strong wind could knock him over. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Anywhere but here." She should get out of the car, find another way. Trust no one, like every survival instinct was screaming. Instead, she pulled the door closed. Then drive. They drove through the night. New Jersey gave way to Pennsylvania. Kangmin had safe houses, apparently, properties owned through shell companies, maintained but never occupied, existing for exactly this kind of emergency. They stopped at one outside Pittsburgh, a modest farmhouse on 10 acres of nothing. Victoria slept for 4 hours, then woke to find Kangmin still awake, sitting by the window, watching the darkness. "You need to rest," she said. "I'll rest when we're safe." "We're in the middle of nowhere. No one knows we're here." "Someone always knows." He turned to face her. "I need to tell you everything, about the ledger, about why this is happening." Victoria sat across from him. Outside, dawn was beginning to lighten the horizon. "I'm listening." The ledger contains records of a truce agreement between 5 major crime families: Kang, Yamamoto, Park, Chen, and Volkov. For 15 years, we've maintained territorial boundaries, shared resources, avoided war. The ledger documents every agreement, every compromise, every secret. And if it goes public, everyone goes down, decades of cooperation exposed. The FBI could use it to prosecute us all. The families would turn on each other. It would be chaos. So everyone wants it. Everyone wants it. He rubbed his eyes. Christina thought she could leverage it, sell information to the Yakuza, Yamamoto's people, and disappear with the money. But the Yakuza don't negotiate. They took what she knew and killed her for the rest. And now they think I know where it is. You're my new assistant. Of course they think you know. His jaw tightened. The text your mother received, the threats, that wasn't just standard protocol. The Yakuza are watching everyone connected to me, looking for the ledger. The mention of her mother sent a spike of fear through Victoria's chest. My mother, is she safe? Kangmin was quiet for a moment too long. Kangmin, is my mother safe? His phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and his face went pale. No, he said, they have her. The video arrived an hour later. Victoria's mother, Denise, bound to a chair in a room with bare concrete walls. She was blindfolded, gagged, but visibly unharmed. A man's voice spoke off camera in accented English. We want the ledger. You have 5 days to deliver it to the location we specify. If you fail, we return your mother to you, piece by piece. The video ended. Victoria watched it 3 times, looking for any clue about the location, her mother's condition, anything. But there was nothing. Just her mother, helpless, paying the price for Victoria's choices. This is my fault, she whispered. No, Kangmin's voice was firm. This is their fault. The Yamamoto family decided to use an innocent woman as leverage. That's on them. I never should have taken this job. I should have stayed in Atlanta. I should have. Victoria, he gripped her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. We can get her back, but I need you to focus. How? They have her. We don't even know where. We deliver the ledger. His expression was grim. The original, in exchange for your mother. You would do that. Give up the one thing keeping all the families in check. I would do anything. His voice softened. To keep you from losing someone the way I lost my mother. There was a problem. The ledger was hidden in a safe deposit box in Atherton, California, one of the wealthiest zip codes in the country. It was protected by biometric security, fingerprint and retinal scan. Only 2 people in the world could access it. Kangmin was one. His father, currently serving life in a maximum security federal prison, was the other. I haven't spoken to my father in 7 years, Kangmin said. They were driving again, heading west. Not since I learned the truth about my mother's death. The truth. He ordered it. The words came out flat, emotionless, but Victoria saw his hands tighten on the steering wheel. She tried to leave. She had help, a friend, another woman who was supposed to get her out, but my father found out. He had my mother killed and the friend hunted down. Did they find the friend? No, she disappeared, took her daughter and vanished. He glanced at Victoria. I've been looking for her ever since. My mother made me promise before she died to find Grace and her child, to protect them like she couldn't. Victoria felt something cold settle in her stomach. Grace. Grace Hayes, that was her name. He seemed lost in memory. My mother's best friend, the only person who ever tried to help her escape. The name hit Victoria like a physical blow. Grace Hayes. Her mother's name before she remarried, before they moved to Atlanta, before they became someone else. Pull over, Victoria said. What? Pull over, now. On the side of a dark highway in the middle of Pennsylvania, Victoria finally understood why her life had intersected with Kangmin's. My mother's maiden name was Grace Hayes, she said. Before she married my father, my adoptive father, the one who raised me, she was Grace. She never talked about her life before Atlanta. Never showed me photos from before I was 10. Kangmin stared at her. That's not possible. She has a scar on her shoulder. She told me it was from a car accident, but I saw it once when she was changing. It looked like a knife wound. His voice was barely audible. My mother's friend was injured during the escape attempt. My father's men caught up to them. Grace was stabbed protecting her daughter. Protecting me. They looked at each other in the dim light of the dashboard. 20 years of secrets, 20 years of running, and now, impossibly, their paths had converged. You didn't hire me because I was desperate, Victoria said slowly. You hired me because you've been looking for me my whole life. I didn't know, Kangmin's voice cracked. I swear to you, Victoria, I didn't know until right now. The background check, the surveillance, I thought you were just a good candidate. I never connected. But your father knew. Silence. He's known for years, Victoria continued, piecing it together. He's been watching my mother, waiting for the right moment, and when you hired me, he saw his chance. To use you against me. To finish what he started 20 years ago. They sat in silence, the weight of the revelation settling over them. Victoria thought about her mother, bound in that concrete room. Her mother, who had risked everything to save the woman she loved, who had spent 2 decades hiding, protecting, lying, all to keep Victoria safe. And now she was a prisoner of the same monster she'd been running from. We're going to California, Victoria said. Her voice was steady now, resolved. We're going to see your father, and we're going to get that ledger. You don't have to come. That's my mother, Kangmin. I'm not staying behind. He looked at her, really looked at her, and something in his expression shifted. Respect, gratitude, something more that neither of them was ready to name. Together, then. Together. The federal penitentiary rose out of the California desert like a concrete tomb. High walls topped with razor wire, guard towers at every corner. The kind of place designed to hold the worst of the worst, the men so dangerous that society had decided to simply remove them from existence. Kang Junho had been here for 7 years. In that time, his power hadn't diminished. If anything, it had grown. He ran his empire from this cell, communicating through lawyers and visitors and a network of corrupted guards. Every warden who'd tried to break him had been transferred, fired, or quietly convinced to look the other way. Victoria sat in the prison's visitor waiting room, watching Kang Min fill out paperwork. His hands were steady, but she could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw was clenched tight. "You don't have to go in," she said. "I can wait here." "I need to be the one to ask. He won't give up the key otherwise." "What if he says no?" Kang Min didn't answer, which was answer enough. She watched through reinforced glass as father and son faced each other for the first time in 7 years. Junho was older now, gray at the temples, lines carved into his face by time and imprisonment. But his eyes were exactly like his son's, dark, calculating, missing nothing. The difference was that Kang Min's eyes had cracks of humanity in them. His father's were pure ice. They spoke in Korean at first. Victoria couldn't understand the words, but she could read the body language. Junho was amused, relaxed, enjoying his son's discomfort. Kang Min was rigid, controlled, every word measured. Then Junho's eyes flicked toward the glass, toward Victoria. He smiled. The guard brought Victoria into the visiting room. She sat across from Junho, separated by a table bolted to the floor, and met his gaze without flinching. "So you're Grace's daughter." His English was accented but perfect. "I've been waiting a long time to meet you." "Wish I could say the same." Junho laughed, a genuine, delighted sound that made Victoria's skin crawl. "Fire, just like your mother. She had fire too, you know, right up until the end." "My mother is alive." "For now." His smile didn't waver. "But that depends on my son, doesn't it? And on what he's willing to give me in exchange for the key." Kangmin spoke, his voice flat. "Name your price." "My price," Junho pretended to consider. "Full access to your legitimate businesses, the real estate portfolio, the hedge funds, everything you've built trying to go straight." That's not what you expected." Junho leaned forward. "You thought you could walk away from the family, build something clean, become something other than my son. But here you are, crawling back, begging for help. Because in the end, blood is blood." "I'm nothing like you." "You're exactly like me, you just haven't admitted it yet." Junho's eyes slid to Victoria again. "Ask him about the photograph, the one he carries in his wallet. Ask him why he really hired you." Victoria looked at Kangmin. His face had gone pale. "What photograph?" "He didn't tell you?" Junho's smile widened. "My son has been carrying a picture of you since he was 12 years old. His dying mother gave it to him, a photo of Grace and her baby, taken the day before the escape attempt. He's been looking for you ever since, not because he cared about his mother's wishes, because he was obsessed." "That's not true," Kangmin said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Isn't it? You screened every assistant application for years, looking for women who fit the profile. When Victoria's resume crossed your desk, Columbia graduate, isolated, desperate, you knew immediately. You engineered everything. The job posting that appeared in her inbox, the financial pressure that made her apply. You've been manipulating her from the beginning." Victoria felt the ground shift beneath her. "Kangmin." He couldn't meet her eyes. "He doesn't love you," Junho continued, almost gentle now. "He loves the idea of you, the promise he made to his mother. You're not a person to him, you're a mission." "Stop," Kangmin's voice was raw. "Just stop." "The key." Junho leaned back in his chair, satisfied with the damage he'd done. "I'll give it to you, but not for the businesses. I want something else." "What?" "A favor, unnamed, unlimited, to be collected whenever I choose." His eyes glittered. "Do we have a deal?" Victoria watched Kangmin struggle. She saw the calculations running behind his eyes, the risk, the cost, the chains this would wrap around him. A favor from Junho could mean anything. Murder, betrayal, a lifetime of servitude. "Yes," Kangmin said, "we have a deal." They retrieved the key from a guard Junho had in his pocket, literally handed over in exchange for nothing more than a nod from the old man. As they walked out of the prison, Victoria stayed silent, processing everything she'd learned. In the car, Kangmin finally spoke. "I should have told you." "Yes, you should have." Everything he said, the photograph, the search, it's true. But Victoria, the reason I kept looking changed. It stopped being about my mother's promise years ago. Then what was it about? He pulled out his wallet and removed a worn photograph. A young woman with natural curly hair holding a baby girl. Grace Hayes, 20 years younger with hope still in her eyes. This was all I had of my mother's best friend, Kang Min said. The only person who ever tried to save her. I looked at this picture every day for 15 years, and somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing the mission. I started seeing you. Victoria took the photograph, looked at her infant self, cradled in her mother's arms. That doesn't make it okay, she said. Manipulating my life, engineering our meeting. I know. But, she took a breath, I understand why you did it, and I'm choosing to stay anyway. Why? She thought about Christina, dead in the river. About her mother, hostage to monsters. About 20 years of running and hiding and lying, all leading to this moment. Because my mother sacrificed everything to keep me safe, and your mother died trying to escape. They both deserve better than for us to fall apart now. She handed back the photograph. Keep this, remember what we're fighting for. Kang Min nodded, and something passed between them, not forgiveness, not yet, but the beginning of something. Understanding, maybe, or trust slowly rebuilding. Atherton, he said, let's get the ledger. The safe deposit box was in a private bank that catered to Silicon Valley billionaires and old California money. The kind of place where security was invisible but absolute, where fortunes were protected by layers of technology and discretion. Kang Min used both keys, his and his father's, along with the biometric scans. The vault door opened onto a small room containing a single metal box. The ledger was smaller than Victoria expected, a leather-bound journal, old and worn. Filled with handwritten records in multiple languages, Kang Min flipped through the pages, his expression grim. Names, dates, amounts, territorial agreements, witness statements. He closed the book. This is everything, enough to destroy every major crime family operating in the United States. Then let's trade it for my mother and end this. It's not that simple. He met her eyes. If we hand this over to the Yakuza, they don't just walk away. They use it as leverage. They become the only ones with power, and everyone else scrambles to take them down. War breaks out. Innocent people die. So what do we do? Before he could answer, a shadow moved in the vault doorway. Victoria spun to find a woman standing there, beautiful, elegant, with sharp features and cold eyes. She wore a designer suit and a smile that didn't reach her face. Behind her, 4 men with guns. Hello, Min, the woman said. Hello, Victoria. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Kang Min stepped in front of Victoria. Yuna Park, the ex-fiancé, the voice on the phone who had warned Victoria to run. I tried to warn you, Yuna said to Victoria, but you didn't listen, and now here we are. The ledger isn't yours, Kang Min said. It's not yours either. It belongs to the families, all of them. She held out her hand. Give it to me, and I'll return Victoria's mother unharmed. You have my word. Your word means nothing. Then how about this? Give me the ledger or I have my men start shooting, starting with her. She nodded toward Victoria. You might be willing to die for that book, but are you willing to watch her die for it? Victoria felt fear rising in her chest, but she forced it down. How do I know my mother is even still alive? Yuna pulled out her phone, showed her a live video feed. Victoria's mother, still bound but now awake, terrified, looking directly at the camera. She stays alive as long as you cooperate, Yuna said. Make your choice. Kang Min was silent for a long moment. Victoria could see him calculating, searching for a way out. But they were outnumbered, outgunned, trapped in a vault with no exits. Take it, he said finally, holding out the ledger. Yuna's smile widened. She gestured to one of her men, who moved forward to take the book. But as he reached for it, Kang Min moved, faster than Victoria had ever seen him move. He grabbed the man's gun, fired twice, and dove behind a column, pulling Victoria with him. The vault erupted in gunfire. The fight was brutal and brief. Kang Min had military training. Victoria knew that now. He moved like violence was a language he spoke fluently, taking down 2 of Yuna's men before the others retreated, dragging their wounded with them. Yuna was the last to leave. She stood in the doorway, still smiling, even with blood spattered on her designer suit. "This isn't over, Min. You know that." "It will be," he said, "one way or another." She disappeared into the bank's corridors. Alarms were blaring now. They had minutes before security locked everything down. "We need to go," Victoria said. "The ledger." "Forget the ledger. We need to find another way to save my mother." Kang Min looked at the book still clutched in his hand. He'd managed to keep it during the fight. But Victoria was right, using it as a straight trade would never work. Yuna would double-cross them. The Yakuza would double-cross them. Everyone wanted this book, and no one could be trusted. "There's another way," he said slowly, "but you're not going to like it." "Tell me anyway." "My brother, Di-young. He's been building a federal case against our father for years. If we give him the ledger, he can bring down everyone, including the people holding your mother." "Your brother, the prosecutor." "My brother, who I haven't spoken to in 8 years. Kang Min's jaw tightened. "The last time we saw each other, I broke 3 of his ribs and told him if he ever came back, I'd finish the job." Victoria processed this. "Why?" "Because he wanted to leave the family, and I was too loyal to our father to let him. I've regretted it every day since." She thought about family, the ones you're born to, the ones you choose, the ones you betray and are betrayed by. She thought about her mother, who had lied to her for 20 years out of love and fear. "Then I guess we're going to San Francisco," she said, "and you're going to apologize." They drove north through the night, stopping only for gas and coffee. Victoria called her mother's number from a burner phone, just to hear her voicemail, to remind herself what she was fighting for. "Tell me about Yuna," she said as the miles disappeared behind them. "What happened between you?" Kang Min was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was distant. "We were supposed to marry 5 years ago. Our families had arranged it. A merger really more business than romance. I thought I could make it work. I thought I could learn to love her." "What changed?" "I discovered what her family was planning. They weren't looking for an alliance. They were looking for a takeover. Once we were married, they would have moved against my father, used me as a puppet. When I confronted Yuna, she admitted everything." He paused. "She laughed, said I was naive if I thought any marriage in our world was about love." "So you called it off?" "I called it off. She's been plotting revenge ever since." His hands tightened on the wheel. "What happened in Atlanta, the kidnapping, that wasn't the Yakuza. That was Yuna using Yakuza muscle. She wants the ledger because it contains evidence of her family's violations. She's been playing all sides against each other." Victoria let that sink in. "So she's the one who has my mother?" "Yes." "And if we give her the ledger, she'll kill us anyway." "Yes." "Then we don't give her the ledger." Victoria's voice hardened. "We destroy her instead." Di-young lived in a modest apartment in San Francisco's No Valley neighborhood. He'd built a new life here, a new identity. James Kang, prosecutor, champion of justice. As far from the family business as it was possible to get while sharing the same blood. When he opened the door and saw Kang Min standing there, his first reaction was to throw a punch. Kang Min took it, didn't block, didn't dodge. Just let his brother's fist connect with his jaw and stagger him backward. "Feel better?" Kang Min asked, rubbing his face. Di-young threw another punch. This time Kang Min blocked, and then they were grappling in the hallway, years of rage and betrayal and grief exploding between them in a flurry of fists and elbows. Victoria wedged herself between them. "Stop, both of you stop." The brothers separated, breathing hard. Di-young's lip was split. Kang Min had a bruise forming on his cheekbone. They stared at each other with the complicated hatred that only family can produce. 8 years, Di-young spat. 8 years of silence. You broke my ribs. You told me you'd kill me if I ever came back. And now you show up at my door like nothing happened. "I was wrong." Kang Min's voice was raw. "About everything, about father, about the family, about you." "You think an apology fixes anything." "No, but I'm not here to apologize." Kang Min pulled the ledger from his jacket. "I'm here because I need your help." Di-young's eyes widened as he recognized the book. "Is that?" "Everything. Every agreement, every payment, every secret. enough to bring down 5 families, including ours. For a long moment, Di-young didn't move. Victoria could see the war playing out on his face, the prosecutor who had dedicated his life to building cases against organized crime versus the brother who had been brutalized and cast out. Finally, he stepped aside. "Get in here before someone sees you." Inside the apartment, Di-young examined the ledger page by page, his expression shifting from disbelief to grim satisfaction. Victoria watched him work, seeing echoes of Kang-min in his features, the same sharp jaw, the same intense focus. "This is real," Di-young said finally. "This is everything I've been trying to find for years." "Then you can use it," Victoria said, "to bring down the people who have my mother." Di-young looked at her properly for the first time. "Who are you?" "Victoria Hayes. My mother was Grace Hayes, the woman who tried to help your mother escape 20 years ago. Unipark is holding her hostage in exchange for that ledger." "Grace Hayes," Di-young's face softened. "Our mother talked about her, said she was the bravest woman she'd ever known. She's going to die if we don't get her back." Di-young turned to his brother. "You want me to help you, after everything?" "I want you to help her," Kang-min gestured to Victoria. "She's innocent in all this. Her mother is innocent. They don't deserve to suffer because of our family's sins." The brothers stared at each other across a gulf of pain and history. Victoria held her breath. "I have contacts in the FBI," Di-young said slowly. "Agents who aren't on anyone's payroll. If we move fast, we might be able to coordinate a rescue before Yuna realizes we're coming." "What about the ledger?" "We use it as bait. Make Yuna think she's getting what she wants, then spring the trap." Di-young almost smiled, a bitter, determined expression. "I've been waiting my whole life to take these people down, including our father." "Father isn't part of this," Kang-min said. "He's already in prison." "Father orchestrated this." Di-young's voice hardened. "You think it's coincidence that Yuna made her move right after you visited him? He gave her the timeline, probably gave her the location of the safe deposit box, too." "Why would he do that?" "Because he wants the ledger in play. He wants chaos. If the families go to war, he can leverage his way out of prison, offer to broker peace, trade testimony for freedom." Di-young shook his head. "You still don't see it, do you? Everything he does is calculated. Every move is part of a larger game." Victoria watched Kang-min absorb this. She saw the moment he accepted the truth, that his father was even more monstrous than he'd believed, that there was no bottom to the man's manipulation. "Then we stop him too," Kang-min said quietly. "All of it, everyone." Di-young nodded. "All of it, everyone." For the first time in 8 years, the brothers were on the same side. The plan came together over the next 48 hours. Di-young contacted his federal connections, agents he'd cultivated over years of building cases, men and women who had no ties to the corruption that ran through so much of law enforcement in organized crime territories. They agreed to participate in an off-books operation, understanding the risk but seeing the potential reward, bringing down multiple crime families in one coordinated strike. Victoria spent those 48 hours in a state of controlled terror. Every hour that passed was another hour her mother remained in Yuna's custody. Every minute of planning was a minute she couldn't be moving, acting, doing something. "We have to get this right," Di-young told her when she pressed for faster action. "If we move before we're ready, Yuna kills your mother and disappears. She has resources all over the world. We get one shot at this." So Victoria waited, and watched, and learned. She learned that Di-young had spent years documenting crimes he couldn't prosecute, cases where evidence disappeared, witnesses recanted, judges were compromised. He had boxes of files in a storage unit, a digital archive encrypted on multiple servers. The ledger was the keystone, the piece that would make everything else hold together. She learned that Kang-min had been working toward the same goal from the inside. The legitimate businesses he'd built weren't just money laundering fronts. They were exit strategies, ways to generate clean income, build a reputation separate from the family name. He'd been preparing to walk away from the syndicate for years, waiting for the right moment. That moment had never come, until now. "Why didn't you ever reach out to me?" Di-young asked his brother one night when Victoria had retreated to try to sleep. She listened from the hallway, unable to resist. "I was afraid," Kang Min's voice was barely audible. After what I did to you, I was afraid you'd reject me, that you'd be right to. I would have forgiven you. Would you? Silence, then. Eventually, maybe. I didn't deserve eventual forgiveness. I deserved nothing. More silence. Then Di-young again, his voice rough. You're here now, that counts for something. Victoria crept back to her room, leaving the brothers to their complicated reconciliation. The operation was set for 3 days later. Di-young had traced Yuna's communications to a compound in the hills above Lowe's Angels, an estate she'd purchased through shell companies, maintained as a private retreat. Satellite imagery showed high walls, security patrols, and a main house with multiple outbuildings. Victoria's mother was being held in the basement of the main house. They'd confirmed this through intercepted communications. Yuna wasn't as careful as she thought she was, or maybe she was arrogant enough to believe no one would dare move against her. The plan was multi-layered. Federal agents would move on the perimeter while Kang Min's loyal men, the few who had stayed with him after he began distancing himself from syndicate business, infiltrated the interior. Di-young would coordinate from a mobile command post. Victoria would stay with him, as much as she hated being sidelined. You're not trained for this, Kang Min told her when she argued. And if something goes wrong, I need you alive. Why? He looked at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Because I just found you. I'm not losing you now. The night before the operation, Victoria couldn't sleep. She sat by the window of their safe house, watching the lights of San Francisco glitter below, and tried to imagine what tomorrow would bring. Kang Min found her there at 3 a.m. He didn't speak, just sat beside her and let the silence stretch between them. Are you scared? She asked finally. Terrified. You don't look it. I've had a lot of practice hiding it. He turned to face her. Victoria, if something happens tomorrow. Don't. I need to say this. He took her hand. His fingers were warm, steady. I know how this started. I know I manipulated circumstances to bring you into my life. But what I feel for you, what I've felt since that first day when you threw whiskey in my face, that's real. Whatever happens tomorrow, I need you to know that. Victoria looked at their intertwined fingers, at this man who had brought chaos into her life and somehow made her feel safer than she'd felt in years. I know, she said. I've known for a while. And she leaned over and kissed him, soft at first, then deeper, pouring all her fear and hope and desire into it. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathing hard. That's my answer, she said. Kang Min smiled, a real smile without shadows. Then I guess I better not die tomorrow. You better not. They stayed by the window until dawn, holding hands, watching the city wake up. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The compound assault happened at sunset. Victoria watched from the mobile command post as Di-young coordinated movements with precise efficiency. Agents moved through the perimeter. Kang Min's team infiltrated the east wing. Communications crackled with position updates and all-clear signals. For 40 minutes, everything went according to plan. Then chaos erupted. Yuna had prepared for them, not with an ambush but with something worse. She wasn't there. The compound was manned by a skeleton crew, guards who surrendered almost immediately. Victoria's mother wasn't in the basement. It's a decoy, Kang Min's voice came through the radio, tight with frustration. She moved them, probably days ago. Victoria's heart plummeted. All that planning, all that waiting, for nothing. Fall back, Di-young ordered. Everyone out now. As the teams regrouped, Victoria's burner phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text. Did you really think I'd stay where you could find me? Your mother is in Atlanta, where this all started. You have 24 hours to bring me the ledger. Alone. Or I finish what should have been finished 20 years ago. Victoria stared at the screen. Atlanta, of course. The cruelest possible location. I'm going, she said. Di-young shook his head. That's exactly what she wants. You walk in alone, you die. She has my mother. Then we send a team. There's no time. Victoria was on her feet now. 24 hours. By the time we plan another operation, by the time we coordinate with federal agents in Georgia, my mother will be dead. She's right. Kang Min emerged from the darkness, still in tactical gear, his face grim. We go now, just the two of us. No teams, no coordination. That's suicide, Di-young said. Maybe, but it's also the only chance. Kang Min turned to his brother. Stay here, keep the federal investigation running. Whatever happens in Atlanta, make sure the ledger goes public. Make sure all of this meant something. The brothers looked at each other. So much had passed between them, violence, silence, tentative reconciliation. Now they faced another separation, possibly permanent. Di-young pulled his brother into a rough embrace. Don't die. I'm not done being angry at you. I'll try. 12 hours later, Victoria and Kang Min landed in Atlanta. The city sprawled beneath them as the private plane descended, all highways and suburbs and the ghosts of Victoria's childhood. She hadn't been back in 3 years, not since her last argument with her mother about moving to New York. I know the neighborhood where she's being held. Yuna's text had continued, providing an address. A warehouse district on the outskirts of the city, far from prying eyes. Kang Min arranged for weapons and a vehicle through contacts Victoria didn't ask about. They drove through familiar streets made strange by circumstance, every mile bringing them closer to confrontation. Whatever happens in there, Victoria said as they approached the district, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Save my mother first. No matter what happens to me, get her out. Kang Min was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was fierce. I'm getting you both out. That's not negotiable. Kang Min. I lost my mother because I couldn't protect her. I'm not losing you. I'm not losing Grace's daughter. His hands tightened on the wheel. We go in together, we come out together, all of us. Victoria didn't argue. She understood. This wasn't just about tactics. It was about redemption. About the 11-year-old boy who had watched his mother die and spent his life trying to make it right. The warehouse loomed ahead of them, industrial and abandoned-looking. But Victoria could see the security. Guards at the perimeter, cameras on the corners, vehicles parked in strategic positions. How many? She asked. At least a dozen, maybe more inside. And it's just us. It's just us. Kang Min pulled the car into an alley a block away. But I've been fighting my whole life, and I've never had a reason as good as this one. Victoria checked her weapon, a handgun Kang Min had taught her to use on the flight over. She wasn't trained, wasn't prepared, had never imagined herself in a situation like this. But her mother was in that building, and she wasn't leaving without her. Let's go. They moved through the warehouse district like shadows. Kang Min's training became apparent as he neutralized the outer guards, silent, efficient, non-lethal when possible. Victoria followed his lead, staying low, keeping quiet, trying not to think about how her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The warehouse itself was a massive structure, 3 stories of rusted metal and broken windows. But the interior had been modernized, bright lights, clean floors, expensive equipment. Yuna had prepared this place, turned it into a fortress disguised as decay. They found an entry point through a loading dock, slipping inside between patrol rotations. The first floor was mostly storage, crates and equipment that Victoria didn't want to examine too closely. The second floor held offices, all empty. The third floor was where they found her. Victoria's mother, Denise, was bound to a chair in the center of a large open room. She looked older than Victoria remembered, exhausted, a bruise on her cheek, but alive. Definitely alive. Mom, Victoria's voice broke. Denise's head snapped up. Victoria, no, you shouldn't be here. You need to run, you need to. Well, Yuna's voice echoed through the space. The whole family reunion. She emerged from the shadows at the far end of the room, flanked by 6 armed guards. Her designer suit was immaculate, her smile perfect and cold. You came alone, she observed, looking at Kang Min. How romantic and how stupid. I brought the ledger. Kang Min held up the book. Let them go. Oh, Min, we both know it's not that simple. Yuna gestured, and her guards fanned out, surrounding them. You see, I don't just want the ledger anymore. I want justice. Justice for what? For everything you took from me. Her composure cracked slightly, revealing the rage beneath. I was supposed to be queen of an empire. You destroyed that. Made me a laughingstock in every family from here to Seoul. Do you know what it's like being pitied by people who should fear you? Is that what this is about? Victoria stepped forward, drawing Yuna's attention. A wounded ego. This is about power, little girl, something you wouldn't understand. I understand that you kidnapped an innocent woman. I understand that you're willing to start a war for revenge. I understand that you've lost your mind. Yuna's eyes flashed. Your mother isn't innocent, hasn't she told you? Victoria glanced at Denise. Her mother's face had gone pale. Tell her, Yuna continued, enjoying herself now. Tell her what you really did 20 years ago. Tell her who you really are. Mom, Victoria's voice shook. What is she talking about? Denise closed her eyes. When she spoke, her voice was a whisper. I didn't just help Soo-yeon escape. I was part of the organization. Jun-ho's accountant. I kept the books for years, knew where every body was buried, every payment was made. I was as guilty as any of them. Victoria felt the room spin. Her mother, her kind, gentle, garden-loving mother, had been part of a criminal empire. When Soo-yeon came to me, I saw a chance to get out, Denise continued. To make up for what I'd done, but I failed her. She died because of me because I wasn't careful enough. I've spent 20 years trying to atone. 20 years hiding, running, protecting you from the truth. Touching, Yuna said, but irrelevant. Grace Hayes or Denise, whatever you call yourself now, you were responsible for millions of dollars in laundered money. You know secrets that could still destroy what's left of the old alliances. And now, you're going to help me negotiate from a position of strength. I won't help you do anything. No, Yuna nodded to one of her guards. He stepped forward, grabbing Victoria by the arm, pressing a gun to her temple. How about now? Denise's resolve crumbled. Please, please, she's all I have. I'll do anything. I know you will, Yuna's smile returned. Now Min, the ledger, slided across the floor, slowly. Victoria watched Kang Min weigh his options. He couldn't fight, not with a gun to her head. He couldn't run, not without her. He was trapped. He slid the ledger across the floor. Yuna picked it up, flipping through pages. Finally, do you know how long I've waited for this? How many plans I've? The explosion came from below. The floor shook. Guards stumbled. In the chaos, Kang Min moved, taking out the man holding Victoria in one fluid motion, grabbing her, pulling her behind a structural pillar. What was that? Victoria gasped. Insurance. He was already returning fire, covering their movement toward Denise. De-young didn't stay in San Francisco. Gunfire erupted throughout the warehouse. Federal agents, Victoria realized, they'd followed them, waited for the right moment. De-young's insurance policy. She reached her mother, cutting through the ropes with a knife Kang Min pressed into her hand. Mom, can you walk? I think so. They moved toward the exit, Kang Min clearing a path through the chaos. Guards fell. Others fled. Somewhere behind them, Yuna was screaming orders that no one was following anymore. They almost made it. Almost. A shot rang out. Kang Min staggered, clutching his side. Blood blossomed between his fingers. Min, Victoria caught him as he fell. Go, his voice was strained. Get your mother out. I'm not leaving you. Victoria. I said no. She grabbed his arm, hauled him upright, ignored his grunt of pain. Her mother took his other side. Together, they half-carried, half-dragged him toward the stairs. Federal agents met them on the second floor, taking over, calling for medical support. De-young appeared, his face ashen when he saw his brother's wound. Med team is 60 seconds out, he said. Hold on, Min, just hold on. Victoria kept pressure on the wound, watching blood seep through her fingers, praying harder than she'd prayed since her father died. You promised, she whispered. You promised you wouldn't die. Kang Min's eyes fluttered open. He tried to smile. I'm not planning on it. Then don't. The medical team arrived. Victoria was pushed aside as they worked, stabilizing, transporting. She stood in the warehouse surrounded by chaos and blood and federal agents, watching the man she'd somehow fallen in love with disappear into an ambulance. Her mother's hand found hers. He'll be okay, Denise said. He has too much to live for. Victoria couldn't speak. She just held on. Kang Min survived. The bullet had missed his vital organs by centimeters. lodging in muscle and causing significant blood loss but no permanent damage. He spent 3 days in intensive care while Victoria barely slept, barely ate, rarely left the hospital. Yuna was captured in the warehouse raid. The ledger was recovered. Federal agents, coordinating with De-Young's information, launched simultaneous operations against all 5 families named in the documents. Dozens of arrests, millions of dollars in assets frozen. The largest organized crime takedown in American history. It was all over the news. Victoria watched from the hospital waiting room, seeing her nightmare transformed into headlines and breaking alerts. On the 4th day, Kang Min was moved to a private room. Victoria was there when he woke up. "You look terrible," he said, his voice hoarse. "You almost died." "But I didn't," he reached for her hand, "because someone told me not to." She laughed, a wet, broken sound that was half sob. "That's not how medicine works." "Worked for me." The door opened. De-Young entered, followed by Denise. The 4 of them looked at each other, strangers who had become family through fire and blood. "The operation was a success," De-Young reported. "Yuna is in federal custody. She's facing charges that will keep her in prison for the rest of her life. The Yakuza leaders named in the ledger have been indicted. The Park family is in chaos. The Kang syndicate," he paused, "is effectively destroyed." "And father?" Kang Min asked. "His immunity deal is being reviewed. He violated terms by coordinating with Yuna. At minimum, he's never getting out. At maximum," De-Young's jaw tightened. "We have enough now to add new charges, murder, conspiracy, things the original deal didn't cover." Kang Min nodded slowly. "Good." Victoria squeezed his hand. "It's over." "Almost." He looked at her mother. "Mrs. Hayes, Denise, I owe you an apology for what my father did to your friend, for what my family put you through, for everything." Denise shook her head. "You don't owe me anything. You brought my daughter back to me. You helped stop people I've been running from for 20 years. She managed a small smile. "If anything, I owe you." "Then we're even." The days that followed were filled with debriefs, depositions, legal consultations. Victoria testified about her experiences, the kidnapping, the threats, the warehouse confrontation. Her testimony, combined with Kang Min's and the ledger itself, built an unshakable case. Through it all, she stayed at Kang Min's side, watched him recover, helped him walk again when the doctors cleared him for physical therapy, brought him terrible hospital food and made him eat it anyway. They didn't talk about the future, not yet. There was too much present to process. But one night, when the room was quiet and the city lights glittered through the window, Kang Min turned to her. "What do you want?" he asked. "After all this, what do you actually want?" Victoria thought about it. About New York and Atlanta and all the places she'd tried to build a life. About the jobs she'd worked and the relationships she'd failed and the person she'd been before everything changed. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I know I want to figure it out with you. Even after everything. The lies, the manipulation, the danger. Maybe because of it." She lay down beside him, careful of his healing wound. "You're not the same person who hired me. I'm not the same person who walked into that interview. We changed each other." "For the better." "I think so." He kissed her forehead. "Then we'll figure it out together." Recovery took months. Kang Min's physical healing was the fastest part. Within 6 weeks, he was moving normally again, the scar on his side a permanent reminder of what they'd survived. The legal proceedings took longer. Depositions, hearings, trials. His cooperation with federal authorities meant reduced charges for his own involvement in family business, but it also meant reliving the worst parts of his life over and over. Victoria stayed, through the difficult days when he couldn't talk about what he'd witnessed, through the nightmares that woke him at 3 a.m., through the sessions with the trauma therapist De-Young had recommended. She had her own healing to do. Her relationship with her mother transformed during this time. Denise had rented an apartment in San Francisco, determined to stay close to her daughter during the aftermath. They talked more honestly than they ever had, about the past, about Grace Hayes and Soo Yeon, and the choices that had shaped their lives. "I should have told you," Denise said one evening, sitting on Victoria's couch with a glass of wine. "Years ago, but I kept thinking if you didn't know, you'd be safe." "Would I have been?" Probably not. Junho's people never forgot. They were always watching, even when I thought we'd escaped. Denise set down her glass. But at least you would have understood. You wouldn't have felt so alone. Victoria thought about her life before Kangmin. The isolation she'd cultivated because connection felt dangerous. The walls she'd built to protect herself from disappointment. I understand now, she said. That's what matters. Kangmin's legitimate businesses survived the scandal. The real estate developments, the investment funds, the corporate holdings, all of it had been structured carefully enough that legal separation from syndicate activities was possible. With Victoria's help, and her finance degree finally being useful, they restructured the company from top to bottom. Di-young joined them, taking a leave of absence from the prosecutor's office to help rebuild something legitimate from the ashes of his family's empire. The brothers worked together for the first time since childhood, learning to trust each other again through shared purpose. I never thought I'd see you two in the same room without fighting, Victoria observed one afternoon, watching them argue over spreadsheets. We're still fighting, Kangmin said. Just about budget projections instead of inheritance rights. That's progress. The trials concluded 9 months after the warehouse assault. Yuna Park was sentenced to 45 years in federal prison. The Yakuza leaders received similar sentences. Members of all 5 families faced charges ranging from money laundering to murder. The organized crime network that had operated across America for generations was effectively dismantled. Junho's case was the last to conclude. New evidence, carefully gathered by Di-young over years, finally admissible now that the entire structure had collapsed, added decades to his sentence. The immunity deal was voided. He would die in prison, alone and forgotten. Victoria watched the verdict on television, Kangmin's hand in hers. When the judge pronounced the sentence, she felt something release in her chest. Not celebration. She wasn't capable of celebrating someone's imprisonment, even someone who had caused so much pain. Relief, that's what it was. Relief that the monster who had haunted her mother's nightmares for 20 years would never hurt anyone again. It's over, she said. Kangmin pulled her close. It's over. That night they stood on the rooftop of their San Francisco apartment building, watching the city lights stretch toward the horizon. So much had changed since that first interview. So much loss and fear and violence, but also growth, connection, love. I have something to ask you, Kangmin said. Victoria's heart stuttered. What? Move in with me, officially. Not just because we're recovering from trauma or navigating legal proceedings. Move in with me because I can't imagine waking up without you. She laughed, surprised, delighted. That's not what I thought you were going to ask. What did you think I was going to ask? Something scarier. Is that a yes? She kissed him instead of answering. The city glittered below them. The future stretched ahead, uncertain but full of possibility. Yes, she said against his lips. Yes. 1 year later, Victoria's life looked nothing like she'd imagined. She was COO of Kang Development, the legitimate real estate company that had risen from the ashes of the syndicate. Their focus was on affordable housing, taking the skills and resources that had once been used for money laundering and redirecting them toward communities that needed investment. It was complicated work, morally ambiguous at times. The money still had shadows, but slowly, deliberately, they were building something clean. Kangmin had proposed 3 months after they moved in together. A quiet proposal, just the two of them on the rooftop where they'd had so many important conversations. No fanfare, no grand gestures, just a ring and a question and Victoria's immediate, tearful yes. The wedding was set for spring. Denise was heavily involved in the planning, delighted to have something joyful to focus on after so many years of fear. She'd become a permanent part of their lives, splitting time between Atlanta and San Francisco, slowly rebuilding the social connections she'd abandoned 2 decades ago. Di-young would serve as best man. He'd returned to the prosecutor's office, but their relationship had transformed. He and Kangmin had dinner every Sunday, slowly repairing what had been broken between them. Victoria was trying on wedding dresses when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, old instincts dying hard, but something made her answer. Victoria Hayes. The voice was female, professional. This is Agent Sarah Chen, FBI. We need to meet. It's about your mother. The wedding dress suddenly felt like a cage. Victoria met Agent Chen at a coffee shop in the financial district. The agent was young, serious, with the kind of focus that suggested she was used to delivering difficult news. Your mother has been contacted, Chen said, by someone claiming to have information about new threats against your family. What kind of threats? We don't know yet. The contact was made through encrypted channels, but the claims are specific enough that we're taking them seriously. Victoria thought about everything they'd survived. The kidnapping, the warehouse, the trials. She'd started to believe it was really over. Who's making the threats? We believe it's connected to remnants of the organizations that were dismantled. Not all members were captured. Some escaped, went into hiding. They've been quiet for a year, but our intelligence suggests they're reorganizing. Victoria called Kang Min from the car. I know, he said before she could speak. Chen's partner is here now. They want us to take precautions. What does that mean? Security details, surveillance, possibly relocation until the threat is assessed. His voice was tired. Just when I thought we were free. Are we canceling the wedding? No, his tone hardened. We're not letting these people take anything else from us. We get married, we live our lives, and we deal with whatever comes. Victoria smiled despite everything. I love you. I love you too. Now come home. We have planning to do. The security arrangements were extensive. Private guards, encrypted communications, background checks on anyone who came near them. It felt like going backward, returning to the paranoid existence Victoria had briefly escaped. But the wedding planning continued. Invitations went out. Vendors were hired. The ceremony would take place at a private estate in Napa Valley, away from the city, surrounded by vineyards and sunset views. 3 weeks before the wedding, the threats materialized. Not an attack, not yet, but photographs. Surveillance photos of Victoria, her mother, Kang Min, Young, all taken within the past month, all delivered to the FBI with a message. We haven't forgotten. We never will. Remnants of the Park family, Agent Chen reported. Yuna's cousins. They've been organizing overseas, building resources. They blame your family for the destruction of their empire. What do they want? Revenge, pure and simple. The days before the wedding became a blur of security briefings and contingency plans. The venue was secured. Guests were vetted. Escape routes were established. Victoria tried on her wedding dress for the final fitting and fought the urge to cry. You don't have to do this, Denise said, watching her daughter's face in the mirror. If it's too dangerous. I spent my whole life letting fear make my decisions. Victoria straightened her spine, watching her reflection transform. Not anymore. I'm getting married, and anyone who tries to stop me is going to regret it. The wedding day dawned clear and golden. The Napa Valley estate was beautiful, rolling hills, perfect weather, the kind of setting that belonged in a magazine. Security was invisible but omnipresent, agents disguised as waiters and guests, surveillance drones disguised as decorative elements. Victoria stood in the bridal suite, surrounded by flowers and soft light, and took a deep breath. Her mother appeared in the doorway. It's time. I know. Victoria looked at her reflection one last time. The dress was perfect, elegant, simple, nothing like the elaborate gowns she'd tried on, just her at her best. Your father would be so proud, Denise said, her voice catching. I know he would. They embraced, 20 years of secrets and lies and survival crystallizing into this moment. Mother and daughter, still standing despite everything. The ceremony was small, 50 guests, all carefully vetted. Young stood beside his brother at the altar. Victoria walked down the aisle alone, by choice, carrying herself with the strength she'd discovered over the past 2 years. Kang Min's face, when he saw her, was worth everything. You're beautiful, he mouthed. She smiled. I know. The officiant spoke about love and commitment and partnership. Victoria barely heard the words. She was too focused on the man in front of her, on the journey that had brought them here, on the impossibility of this moment ever existing. When it was time for vows, she spoke from the heart. I took a job because I was desperate. I stayed because you saw me, really saw me, in a way no one else ever had. I fell in love with you not despite your darkness, but because you were fighting it, because you were trying to be better, because you kept your promise to a mother who loved you, even when it cost you everything. Kangmin's eyes glistened. I promise to keep fighting with you, she continued, to face whatever comes, to build something beautiful from the ashes of everything that tried to destroy us. I promise to love you, not because of our past, but because of our future. His vows were simpler, rougher. I was dead before I met you, walking through a life I didn't want, trapped by a legacy I couldn't escape. You brought me back. You saved me, and I will spend every day of my life trying to deserve you. They exchanged rings. They kissed. The guests applauded. And for one perfect moment, the world was exactly as it should be. The reception was in full swing when the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in immediately, bathing the venue in dim red light. Guests murmured in confusion. Security agents reached for weapons. Victoria grabbed Kangmin's hand. The tunnels. This way. They'd prepared for this. Escape routes memorized, contingency plans drilled. But as they moved toward the back of the venue, a figure stepped from the shadows. A man, Korean, young, maybe mid-20s. He held a gun, but it wasn't pointed at them. I'm not here to hurt you, he said. I'm here to warn you. Kangmin shielded Victoria. Who are you? My name is Park Jinwoo. Yuna is my cousin. His voice was steady despite the chaos around them. The attack that was planned for tonight, I stopped it. Disabled the team, alerted your security. They're being arrested now. Why would you do that? Jinwoo's expression was complicated. Because I watched my family destroy itself. I watched Yuna become a monster, and I decided I didn't want to become one too. He holstered his weapon. Consider this a wedding gift and a peace offering. Federal agents swarmed the area. Jinwoo surrendered without resistance, was led away for questioning. The lights came back on. Guests were reassured. The crisis was contained. But the reception was definitely over. Later, in their suite, Victoria and Kangmin sat in their wedding clothes, champagne going flat on the table. Some party, she said. Best one I've ever thrown. She laughed despite everything. What do we do now? Now, he pulled her close. We live our lives, we build our future, and we don't let anyone take this from us. Can we really do that? Live normally? I don't know, he kissed her forehead, but I want to find out with you. The investigation revealed the full scope of the threat. Park Jinwoo's information led to arrests across 3 countries. The remnants of the organization that had targeted them were systematically dismantled. This time, there would be no survivors, no remnants waiting to resurface. Jinwoo himself became an unlikely ally. In exchange for his cooperation, he was offered witness protection and a reduced sentence. He chose instead to help, providing testimony, identifying operatives, ensuring the complete destruction of his family's criminal legacy. Why? Victoria asked him during one of the debriefings. You could have disappeared, started over somewhere else. Jinwoo considered the question. Because I watched my cousin become the worst version of herself. I watched my uncles destroy everything they touched. And I realized that the only way to honor my family was to end what it had become. That sounds lonely. It is, he almost smiled. But maybe that's what penance feels like. The final trial concluded 18 months after the wedding. The last of the Park family operatives were sentenced. The threat was officially neutralized. The FBI closed the case file. Victoria stood on the steps of the courthouse, Kangmin beside her, and watched the sun set over the San Francisco skyline. It's really over this time, she said. It's really over. They walked home through streets that had become familiar, past buildings that held memories. The Kang Development Office, where they'd rebuilt something from nothing. The coffee shop where they'd had their first real date. The park where Kangmin had proposed. Their apartment was quiet when they arrived. Denise was visiting friends in Atlanta. Di-young was in court. For the first time in months, they had the evening to themselves. I want to show you something, Kangmin said. He led her to his study and opened a drawer she'd never examined. Inside was a photograph, old, worn at the edges. A young woman with natural curly hair holding an infant. "This was the photograph I showed you in the car," he said. "The one my mother gave me. I've carried it for most of my life." "I know. I don't need to carry it anymore." He looked at her. "I found you, I kept my promise, and now—" He set the photograph gently on the desk. "Now I can let go." Victoria understood what he was offering. Not just the photograph, but the weight of the past. The obligations that had driven him for so long. "What do you want instead?" she asked. "This, us, a life that isn't defined by what came before." He took her hands. "I want to wake up next to you without checking for threats. I want to go to work without wondering if someone is watching. I want normal, Victoria. For the first time in my life, I want normal." "Normal is boring." "Normal sounds amazing." She kissed him, slow and sweet, a promise of all the ordinary moments to come. 2 years later, Kang Development had become one of the most successful affordable housing developers on the West Coast. The company had completed 23 projects, providing homes for thousands of families. They'd received awards, recognition, the kind of positive press that still felt surreal given where the money had originally come from. Victoria oversaw operations with a skill she'd never known she possessed. Her Columbia finance degree, which had seemed useless during her years of struggling, now shaped policy and directed resources. She'd found her purpose, not in spite of her past, but because of it. Kang-min focused on partnerships, using connections he'd never wanted to leverage for legitimate purposes. Former associates who'd gone straight, investors looking for ethical opportunities. The web of relationships that had once sustained a criminal empire now built affordable housing. Di-young had been appointed to a federal judgeship. The brother who'd tried to escape the family name had transformed it instead, becoming known for fair rulings and passionate advocacy for justice reform. Denise had moved back to Atlanta, finally at peace with the past. She tended her garden, made new friends, lived the quiet life she'd been running toward for 20 years. Victoria visited monthly, their relationship stronger than it had ever been. One evening, Victoria came home to find Kang-min in the nursery. They'd converted the spare room 6 months ago, when the tests came back positive. Now it was painted soft green, filled with furniture they'd chosen together, waiting for the child who would arrive in 8 weeks. "Everything okay?" she asked. He was holding a small toy, a stuffed rabbit, the first thing they'd bought when they learned they were expecting. "I was thinking about my mother," he said, "about what she would have said about this, about us." Victoria wrapped her arms around him from behind. She would have been proud. "I think so too." He set the rabbit in the crib. "I spent so long trying to keep my promise to her, find Grace's daughter, protect her, and now—" He turned to face Victoria. "Now we're going to have a daughter of our own." They'd learned the gender last week. A girl. Victoria had cried. Kang-min had been suspiciously quiet for hours. "What do you want to name her?" Victoria asked. "I was thinking, Soo-yeon after my mother." He hesitated. "But if that's too much—" "It's perfect." Victoria felt tears threatening again. "Soo-yeon Hayes Kang." "Hayes Kang. My father gave me his name. I want our daughter to carry both of ours." They stood together in the nursery, surrounded by possibilities, connected to generations past and future. The weight of history wasn't gone, it never would be, but it had transformed into something different. Not a burden, a foundation. The baby arrived on a Tuesday in April, screaming into the world with all the fire her parents possessed. Soo-yeon Hayes Kang was 7 pounds, 4 ounces, with her father's dark hair and her mother's fierce eyes. She was perfect. Victoria held her daughter in the hospital room, surrounded by family. Kang-min sat beside her, unable to stop staring at the tiny person they'd created. Denise wept openly. Di-young pretended he wasn't crying too. "She's beautiful," Denise whispered. "She looks just like you did when you were born." "She's going to be trouble," Di-young predicted. "With parents like hers, definitely trouble." "Good trouble," Kang-min said. "The best kind." In the weeks that followed, Victoria experienced a strange kind of peace. The sleepless nights and overwhelming responsibility of new parenthood, balanced against the profound joy of watching her daughter grow. She thought often about the journey that had brought her here. The $55 in her bank account. The interview that changed everything. The terror and violence and loss. But also the love, unexpected, complicated, transformative love. 6 months after Soo-yeon's birth, Victoria stood in front of a mirror in their Manhattan penthouse, adjusting diamond earrings that had been a gift from Kangmin. They were attending a gala, a charity event for victims of organized crime, an organization she and Kangmin had founded together. The woman in the mirror looked like a stranger. Designer dress, perfect hair, confidence that came from having survived the worst and found her way through. Kangmin appeared behind her, handsome in his tuxedo, holding their daughter. "Ready?" he asked. "Almost." She took Soo-yeon, kissed her forehead, breathed in the baby powder scent. "Just a few more minutes." "Take your time." She sat by the window, holding her child, watching the city lights glitter below. This penthouse, this life, it was so far from the cramped apartment in Greenwich Village where everything had started. But she was still herself, still Victoria Hayes, still the woman who'd thrown whiskey in a crime boss's face and demanded to be treated as an equal. She'd just gained a few things along the way. Kangmin returned, and they left for the gala together. The event was beautiful, chandeliers and champagne, and people who wanted to make a difference. Victoria gave a speech about second chances and transformation. Kangmin watched her with such pride that she almost forgot her words. At midnight, they stood on the venue's rooftop, the Manhattan skyline glittering below, similar to so many rooftops where they'd had important conversations, but different now. "I was thinking," Kangmin said. "Dangerous." He smiled. "I was thinking about how far we've come from that first interview, from you thinking I was going to kill you. You were terrifying." "I was trying to be." He took her hand. "I'm glad it didn't work." "Me too." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city that had brought them together, destroyed them, rebuilt them. "What now?" Victoria asked. "We've won. The bad guys are in prison. We have a company, a daughter, a life. What's next?" Kangmin considered. "I don't know, but that's the point, isn't it? For the first time we get to decide, no one else, just us." "That's terrifying." "I know," he pulled her close, "but we've done terrifying before." Victoria thought about the woman she'd been, desperate, alone, signing away her life for a chance at survival. She thought about everything she'd lost and everything she'd gained. "I love you," she said. Not for the first time, but it felt important to say it now, on this rooftop at this moment. "I love you too." He kissed her softly. "Now let's go home. Our daughter is probably driving the nanny crazy." They left the gala hand in hand, stepping into a future they'd built from chaos and courage. And somewhere, Victoria knew, 2 women who'd loved them were watching. Soo-yeon, who dreamed of freedom and paid for it with her life. Grace, who'd run for 20 years to give her daughter a chance. They'd both sacrificed everything for love. Now their children had found each other, made peace with the past, and created something new. That was their legacy, not the violence, not the fear. The love that survived.